You're listening to the Classic Gamers Guild podcast.
This makes my nipples hard.
Hey there, friends. How's it going? Wait, you can't answer me, but that's okay. I'll tell you, we're doing pretty darn good because we're here to talk about another comparison of a game that actually, I don't even know. Paul, how many times do you think this game has been brought up on this podcast, like over time in like words? I don't even imagine, hundreds of times for sure, if not in the thousands.
I was going to go with seven times.
One of us is exaggerating. But that's Space Quest, and we're talking the first Space Quest game specifically.
Yeah, this is Space Quest for breakfast because it's early. It's really early for us to be doing a podcast, and it feels weird that we're sitting here this early in the day to do that. So, yeah. Anyway, welcome to the Space Quest comparison series. This year we're doing another comparison. We played all the Space Quests. We played the first Space Quest twice. Space Quest 1, the both of them.
Yes, the Sarian encounter, which had a lot of puns in it, like Yulin's Flats, that I didn't understand as a child until I was in these groups. And they're like, reverse the words around. So I tested it on Jacob, like my 13-year-old, and I'm like, hey, Yulin's Flats, what do you think that is? And he didn't get it either, thank goodness, until I said, well, flip the two words around. And then he said flatulence, and then he thought it was funny.
And then he's like, then he called mom based, and then mom had to Google what based meant because we're getting old. What does ratioed mean? I don't. Everything's moving on without us. We need to stop and look up some of these words. What is the Riz? I was told that I don't have any Riz.
No, that's horrible. I can't believe I didn't run out. I went to Costco and got the really big package of Riz. So I'm going to be good for a while. Bet.
All right, so we have just too many notes. It's all chaos. Some of it makes sense, most of it doesn't. What we're going to do here is we're going to compare them as we've been doing, but I think we're going to do this by the order of which the story takes place. So, let's do some backstory first, because this is usually half the episode is us waiting to get to the story part and just doing tons of backstory. So let's, for those of you who don't know, which is just baffling if you listen to the show and don't know like the basic facts about Space Quest that we're about to give you. But it's by the two guys from Andromeda. And here's some interesting things that I didn't exactly know or like have like well defined or fleshed out. Like, for example, where does the name Two Guys from Andromeda come from? Well, it's a bloody play on words. But what I didn't know, for being serious, I didn't know that it was also like a pun on, I guess, an old pizzeria or Italian food place called Two Guys from Italy. Right.
Right.
So that's fun. And I didn't know specifically exactly what Mark Crow and Scott Murphy did. Like, we hear like Scott Murphy did programming and we know Mark's an artist. But specifically, Mark Crow did the graphics, the puzzles, and the basic overarching storyline. Scott Murphy did the programming and then a lot of like the I guess you could say dialogue, right? As opposed to like the story or the plot of the story. He did a lot of like the actual dialogue and injected the kind of humor into it. So that was kind of cool just to have that actually defined. Like, I had no idea Mark Crow did the puzzles, for example.
Right, exactly. And it's neat how they all got their start in there. Scott he wanted to get into the company, and he ended up being there to write lines randomly at Ken Williams' house. And then from there ended up getting his own series. And it's funny, you never know how something like that's going to happen in the wide world of video games in the 1980s. It seems like such a wild world too, doesn't it?
It does. And it's something I really adore about Sierra is, and this is why I've always been, I don't know, I guess like defensive of them, especially when it comes to the fact that in our little adventure game circle, Sierra is often depicted as like the monolith, like the evil corporation in a sense, because they were so giant, and LucasArts was projected as like the plucky underdogs. But it's really quite the opposite in the sense of everyone listeners probably heard my rant already. Like, it's hard to be an underdog when you're working at actual Skywalker Ranch and your only instructions is not to lose money. but what's cool about the two guys situation is Scott Murphy, I believe, was working at a local diner in Oakhurst. I tend to exaggerate things in through time and memory. So I'm not sure that he was actually a busboy, but that makes it more of like a dramatized story, from rags to riches. He was just busting tables at a diner. But I do know, I do think that he was. Let me pedal that back. From know to think that he was working at a diner. When he got a job at Sierra, through I think just pluckiness basically, and then Mark Crow was like he was an artist, but he was traveling from business to business trying to sell like logos and art design, and just really just trying to make money, I guess you could say, as an artist, and that's how they both ended up at Sierra. So I thought that was a cool little, very like authentic backstory, and they met each other doing the Black Cauldron, doing a Disney project, I guess you could say, of all things. And another cool thing I learned doing research for this that I never really thought about before was it was less that not less that they wanted to do a sci-fi game, but a lot of it was that they both felt that King's Quest was taking itself too seriously.
Yeah, the humor was really forefront in this series, and I think it was a big part of what drove me to want to play every game in the series and get to know the world more, because this kind of humor, the brand of humor that they had, felt so fitting to my personality as a kid, and even now replaying it as a grown-up.
Yeah, exactly. And something I took down in the notes that was just like a little minor, I don't know, aha kind of moment was, it seems like Space Quest, at least when it comes to deferring from King's Quest, because granted, all right, the Sarian Encounter, the EGA AGI version here, came out in 1986. Just like, that's kind of baffling. I was 3 years old at the time. Like that, it's a much older game than I tend to think of it as in memory. And most of the versions that we all play, like 2.2 is the version that comes with all the collections and from GOG and Steam. That was from 87. Just for any, preemptively pedantic, to be like, it was actually 86 for the original 1.0X version. but
and there were subtle differences between every single one of those versions, considering like how many times they got sued.
Yeah, somebody got stabbed.
Yeah, that's my neighborhood now. I live in the ghetto, so that happens often. It's kind of like a Space Quest game. There's no save button. It's grayed out. You can't hit it. It's like, damn it.
Oh man, I'm tempted to edit in some gunshots in the background, but what if somebody really got hurt? That'd be messed up. All right. Anyway, look, listen. One of the realizations I had was that Space Quest really made dying fun. And we've talked about on the show before how death is often I don't know, misconstrued, I think, especially from like the more Lucas crowd or the people that didn't grow up with the Sierra games, not realizing that it wasn't always a punishment. Actually, I would say it was kind of rarely a punishment. It was usually an exploration reward. But I would say that it's fair to say punishment if you're going off of the early King's Quest games, where it really maybe wasn't so fun and it kind of was a punishment. Like, you got like an animation of like falling off a bridge or downstairs, but for the most part, it was more of a punishment, I think, in at least the first two King's Quest games. And then Space Quest came along and made dying like a true like reward. Like, it was really fun, and we'll get more into it as we go into like actual comparisons. But I had a lot of fun last night with my kid, just going, saving our game and dying, and saving our game and dying, and it quickly became his favorite part of the game, as it did with Jacob's, with your sons, right? Because you sent me a message about that too. We were both basically doing the same thing at the same time, which was dying in Space Quest with our kids.
He wanted to make sure I didn't miss any deaths. He's like, wait, no, go back. I want to. And he's like, some things didn't kill him, but he's like, I just want to check to see if it did. And then like in the remake, he was disappointed because there was like this almost Olympic like narration that we'll get into where they explain all the deaths along the way. And they didn't have one for one of the deaths. So he's just like, oh, that's disappointing. Kids nowadays, it's like, but you got a bunch of them. I want them all like that.
Right. An insatiable appetite for death the children have.
It's true. It's so true. Oh, it's wonderful too, because I recognize it. Like if I didn't play these games growing up, I could see how it could scare me as a mom. and be like, oh my God, you're obsessed with death and dying. This is a terrible thing. But it's like, since I grew up with it, I'm so proud of him. I'm like, yes, darling, let's look for more deaths. That's wonderful.
Now, I do have a crippling sense of death anxiety, but I'm sure it has nothing to do with these games as a child.
Not at all. Restore, restore, restore.
All right, so back to our little origin story. Ken Williams, when the two guys approached him to do this game, Ken said no. And so they went ahead and did the first 4 screens of the game, and that turned Ken around on it. He's like, okay, I'm back in. So that gave him the ability to make our beloved Space Quest game, and so that was pretty cool. And now I'm just looking at a sea of notes and getting intimidated. Back.
Find screenshots, you'll be okay.
Yeah, good call. I should have pulled those up. Okay, so I think that's our origin story. Is there anything else you want to cover before we do like story related things or get into the comparison?
Yeah. So when did you first play Space Quest 1?
Oh shit. Okay, right. Our origin story. I first played it on the Apple Macintosh in black and white. But way back in the day, I didn't play it when I was 3 when it came out, but I probably played it when I was like 7 or something like that. I'm gonna guess. Played it on the black and white Macintosh, which is a weird version of Space Quest because it has like a shitty point and click kind of style to it, where like there's a menu at the top. For any current day Mac users, the same as there is nowadays with the Mac menu at the very top of all the screens, but it had a drop down for verbs. And most of the menu actions really just pulled up the text box, which was kind of insane because you just had to start typing for it to otherwise pull up. Like it was pretty useless and pretty weird, but I guess credit to them for at least giving it a shot. But yeah, it was technically, you could point and click, I guess. But I mean, there was no getting there. Okay, you couldn't, because there was no getting around the fact that you had to eventually get to the keyboard. Because even if you went up to the menu to the verb section, the verb drop down, let's say you picked a verb, all it did was put that verb in the text box for you. So like,
thanks, guys.
Right? Like, in case you're too lazy to type look, you could go the long way around and have it put look in for you. But like, you'd still have to then type what to look at. So it's not like, it wasn't like a replacement for a keyboard, I guess you could say. So I don't know where it really fits anywhere at all.
It's so weird.
And it was hideous because it was black and white, but there was like no shading. There was just a lot of like, not even dithering, but just dots, like literal just white and then black, and it was hideous. If you haven't seen it, Google Macintosh versions of any of these SCI games, and you'll see what I'm talking about. It was pretty ugly, but I loved it. It didn't matter. I played Space Quest 1 and 2, Police Quest 1, and Gold Rush all on the Macintosh in black and white, and that's what hooked me. So that's maybe even the most baffling part about it, is after you see these screenshots and be like, wow, that was enough for this guy would grow up and do like a podcast about this shit. Like, wow. Kind of amazing. But yeah, so that's my origin story. It's one of the first games I played. I think I played 2 before 1. Doesn't matter. I was such a young kid. A lot of it was just walking around and seeing what would happen anyway. But yeah, what was yours?
Well, wait, did it pause when you were typing?
I don't remember.
Because that's significant to me, because I was scared of this game because I played it and I was intimidated by it because it didn't pause when you were typing. So I kind of avoided it until after I'd completed number 4 and 5 and got a collection, and then went back and played the original ones with a walkthrough.
Right. You know what? It did pause, because now I'm remembering there was also a sidebar with little controls. They were really trying to push the point and click thing. And I know why. It was because Macintosh had a mouse support before, I guess DOS, let's say, at the time wouldn't have been Windows yet. So I think Mac was just like, really nudging their developers into utilizing the mouse. They're like, this hot new thing. It's called a mouse. It's going to take off. You'll see. It's going to be all the rage. You guys are going to love it. So they were trying to really force the mouse into it. So there was a pause button on the side, and kind of humorously, the only thing the pause button did was pull up the text box, thus pausing the game. So yeah, the long way around, as I said, it did. But yeah, you're right, because we've had this debate before. I'm not sure if you've ever talked about it on the pod, but at least in Messenger, where with SCI 0, like with the King's Quest 4, let's say, like the late parser games, it wouldn't pause the game as you typed. And there's like a pro and con, because the pro of pausing the pro is that it pauses the game. You don't have to panic so much. You have like a second to actually think about it and not do a typo. But if it doesn't pause the game, you could at least do like monotonous tasks while you walk across the screen. You know, like you could type open door on your way to the door. So it's pros and cons.
Yeah, my King's Quest IV always paused. That was why I think I liked it, because it was the first game I ever played, and it was a text game, and it paused when I typed. And that's why I was scared of 1, 2, and 3, because they didn't.
Do I have it backwards? So the AGI did not pause.
Right. AGI didn't pause.
My bad.
That's
I just got
okay.
that totally backwards. Again,
Just in case a listener is sitting on the edge of their seat going, oh my gosh, I need to. No,
This is
it's okay. I
enraging.
got you. We're okay. We're okay, man. It's okay.
I can't sit by and listen to him say wrong shit anymore.
But I didn't play the AGI version until one day we'll maybe revisit the different versions of King's Quest and give it a good episode.
Yeah, exactly. We'll give it a good comparison. We definitely will too. Okay, so but anyway, but back to your origin story. Like how old were you? What was the vibe?
Right. Yeah. No, I guess I must have been. What year did the collection come out? It was a little later, right?
Yeah, it would have been. Well, which collection? Like the blue,
the first one,
the blue box, the big box that was blue, like floppy collection. Even then, that came on a CD.
Yeah, it came on a CD. But the first round of collections, when they very first came out a CD, because I was excited to get it, because I just didn't have all of the other boxes.
Was it like that really classy looking box where it was like a nice like matte blue and it had like a gold Space Quest emblem in the center?
Yeah, it just only had up to 4, I think, or something. Did it have all of them?
I'm not sure about 5.
I don't know. I think the CD was blue. I have so many copies of just the CD by itself, but it's all in my CD sleeve folder. Because like the box is long gone. I don't even know whatever happened to the box. All I have left in evidence is the CDs.
So you didn't get to Space Quest until at least the mid 90s then?
Yeah, well, Space Quest 4, I played it right when it first came out. So I guess that would have been 91.
Okay.
And so I played that first, and then I played 5, and then I got the collection, and then I played all the way through, and then I played 6.
Got you. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That is interesting. You went out of order all the way from 4 back.
Which is why the story, I don't think, mattered to me as much as it would have if I was invested in it from the beginning.
Right. Well, and 4 is relevant to this episode in the sense that I think that the VGA remake is it's similar to 4. It's not in the exact style of 4. I would almost say that, actually, I would definitively say that the VGA remake has more personality and like it's more stylistic than Space Quest 4.
Yeah, it's less formulaic. It's a little bit more wild. It's a little bit more like almost experimental. It's cool. It's God, I had so much fun with the VGA version. Like I like both, and I've played EGA lots of times, but I only played VGA once when it came on a collection, and I played it. But that was it. I haven't played it since. So I was really surprised at how much additional bits and pieces they had thrown in just to up the fun factor.
Yeah, that's been kind of a theme of this comparison. Is so far we're kind of 3 for 3 on just really having a lot of fun with the remakes. I'm not even sure it has anything to do with dampened expectations, or because I think in all the cases, well, even at the time they didn't sell well, right? And then they didn't preserve in people's memories, or history hasn't been very kind to the remakes, let's say, either. So there is a slight element of maybe not expecting a whole lot as we've gone into these remakes, but man, they've all been impressive and a lot of fun. To the art style, the VJ remake, it is similar to 4. Like Roger's sprite is almost identical, if not identical. But the VJ remake of 1 has a retro futurism kind of style. So that's like I've really struggled with the name of it. That's the best I can do right now. But an example of that type of art would be like the Jetsons or the Iron Giant or the works of Sid Mead. There's some good retro futurism for you guys. I guess the Jetsons is probably the most universal. Like most people listening could probably close their eyes and imagine that. But it's just, what the 50s, early 60s envisioned the space age to look like.
Psychedelic. And I mean, there's a few times you can look at the game and say that.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, especially with the time travel, which or not time travel, the regular travel, which is
Yeah.
similar to the time travel in 4. But
Hmm.
yeah, retrofuturism summed up in sort of one word is ray gun. That's
Hmm.
I guess 2 words. I don't know how conjunctions or whatever work, but um I dropped out of school to do an adventure game podcast, guys. So this is the cost.
Hashtag goals.
But yeah, in a word or two, ray gun. That's
Hmm.
the art style of the VGA remake, and they really leaned into it. Again, like it's pretty similar to 4. You could at least tell that they were made in within the same year or two of each other. But 1 is just so it's so much fun to look at. Like I really like it. And yes,
The little animations are beautiful.
they
The little
are.
character animations, and it really took its time and showed it to you and was like, no, I made this 5 or 6 second animation and it's fun. Let's watch it.
Yeah, and I was pleasantly surprised to see Douglas Herring all over the credits as far as art and I think
Hmm.
animation as well, because I mean he was
Yeah.
like the mastermind behind so much of Sierra's. He was almost like Sierra's Mark Ferrari when it came to just an insanely intricate and beautiful work with EGA limited palette dithering, such as Conquest of Camelot and Laura Bow or Colonel's Bequest. So yes, as soon as I saw his name, I was like, that explains a lot of the quality because the animations were just so fluid and bendy and snappy and just they were
Hmm.
amazing. Like the sticky plant,
Yeah, it's my
things like that.
favorite.
Yeah, so satisfying.
Oh, so good. I just wanted to keep picking them. It was great.
Okay, so I guess we can move towards the story now. He says
Hmm.
hesitantly, like he's forgetting something big. But yeah, okay. So it starts out. Arn. I don't know. That was my mouth just went rogue on me. Arn. It starts out on the Arcadia.
Hmm.
Roger wakes up to find his ship under attack by the Sarians, who have stolen the star generator. And I know, gasp. And the star generator. This is basically, if you've seen Wrath of Khan, that's what the star. That's what's going on here. Star
Hmm.
generator, power of suns, blah blah blah. Very very Wrath of Khan like when it comes to the star generator. So you wake up there and it introduces you to Roger, whose proclivity for a good nap saves his life, and that'll be a theme throughout the entire series.
Yep.
He's the only one that survives because of his slacking off. And I guess it's worth noting too that Roger Wilco isn't necessarily Roger Wilco in the EGA version. The first 2 Space Quests, you pick a name for him. He's kind of like a blank avatar.
Hmm.
Where in the title screen, right, you get to name him. Whereas in the remake, and this is worth noting too, that Space Quest really went a direction of what was it? Come Space Quest. So Space Quest 4, 5, and 6, they kind of almost rebranded it to Roger Wilco.
Hmm.
In a Space Quest adventure, as opposed to Space Quest whatever, and so that's maybe one of the immediate huge differences between the 2 versions is that Space Quest the original is Space Quest: The Sarian Encounter, and the remake is Roger Wilco in
Hmm.
the Space Quest Sarian Encounter. And for anybody who doesn't know, Roger Wilco is understood, will comply, right? It's military
Hmm.
stuff. Roger is understood, Wilco is will comply, and he's we're controlling him as an avatar. It's all very clever.
It is.
Yeah.
Puns abound. And I didn't know that when I was a kid, the connotation. So I'd say Roger Wilco to people in conversation, and they'd nod and be like, yeah, exactly, and carry on. And I always thought, I'm like, oh, they know Space Quest, and would always be mildly disappointed when they had no idea what I was talking about.
Right. That is pretty funny. Roger Wilco, like to hear it militantly out of context would be kind of jarring. Like some sort of like deep state programming just kicked in, and you're like Roger Wilco. They're like, what
So if the
the?
broadcast is incoming.
Yeah. Okay, before we go too deep into it, I will say in the original version, original version, so 1.0x is the first
Mhm.
release version, 1986. In that very first screen, if you typed in Ken Williams will waddle out and complain about how the game is behind schedule. And it's only available in 1.0x. It was removed from there on out. In Ken's defense, he is not drawn or animated in a flattering sense, so I kind of get that. It was a little mean. I don't know. I thought it was a little mean. Like, geez, guys, he was gigantic, basically, in that sprite. But yeah, you could check that. It's in the first screen. You just type in Ken and how he waddles. So okay. Anyway, what else? What do we have early on that's kind of
Well, right away, if you're playing each game, the immediate difference that I found is I had to change the aspect ratio on my screen. Otherwise, I wasn't able to like walk off to the next screen. Like I had to go into Scum and make it so that it was full screen and hitting all sides.
Oh, that's interesting. Was that for the original or the remake?
For the remake.
Huh.
Yeah, because I kept trying to click on the edge and there was a black bar on each side of the screen. And I was like, I couldn't figure out the exact click point to leave each room. And it was really frustrating. But then when I fixed the aspect ratio, it was normal again. And it was just click at the edge like you're supposed to. But it turns out it's a very specific click point at the very edge of the screen, which is sort of
It
when
is.
the walk cursor is half gone in a specific area, that if there's no border that stops you, it's quite hard to get it right, like halfway through the man in the right spot.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. You're right. It could be tricky to leave the screen, like especially when you're stuck like on Corona, when you're underneath the dinosaur, the monster bones and stuff, like you
Mm-hmm.
kind of walk into it. There was a really cool, and my son really appreciated this in this early scene in the VGA remake. There's like a graded floor,
Mm-hmm.
with like holes in it and everything, and when you go down the elevator and you walk underneath that floor, like you can just barely see Roger going through the grates. And it's
Mm-hmm.
just very cool, especially
Mm-hmm.
for actually. I don't want to. I almost put us both on the spot and said, when did the remake come out? But we don't. I don't know. I think it was 91. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, give or take around there.
Yeah, for sure in the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
So
A few years later.
yes, yeah, definitely after the original.
So this one got me. It got me because I didn't know to get a widget.
Oh,
And so I
interesting.
didn't get the widget. I carried on and I went to the next place and I didn't have what I needed to do translating and I didn't know where it was or how to get it because I was thinking I was missing something from playing the first one before, but I'm like, what widget? And then there's other times, like for example, with the slot machine, you're supposed to attach a thing to make it so you can win. I didn't know that, and I spent almost 40 minutes
Oh,
gambling
okay.
on the
That's
slot machine and almost always losing and just save spamming it. Hard time to get to $256. My whole family's looking at me like, what the hell are you playing this stupid game for? Those sounds are so annoying.
it was loud too. So wait,
Uh,
you made it to $256 without the widget?
I did
That's so,
very.
you were
It
so
was.
close.
I was discovering the algorithm because if you put the money in first and then saved it, it would keep doing the same thing. But if you didn't put the money in first, it would. But it would sometimes get caught, so you couldn't go back to your original save. You had to let yourself lose every once in a while because it was stuck on a pattern. It was very frustrating.
Wow, that's insane. I'm really impressed. Okay, so you have to get for listeners, you have to get to $300 is how much money you have
Yes.
to make, and you this widget is, I don't know, graphically it looks like a magnet, and you put it
Hmm.
on the slot machine, and it makes it so
Hmm.
it always lands on identical symbols,
I did no walkthrough. I was just doing this straight up cold. So how the hell would I know to attach a widget to the slot machine?
right, geez. And now, granted, help me with my memory. I did play this last night, but I can't
Mhm.
remember where you get the widget.
You have to get it, I think, from the translator. You have to get from the thing, the widget.
Is
You
it
have to get aboard the Arcadia, and then
right?
the gadget. You have to get the translator from the Arcadia. So they're both on the Arcadia.
Right. Okay. Okay. Um, and actually, okay, I've got it. I've been calling it Arcadia my whole life, including in this episode three
Oh,
minutes
it's
ago.
Arcada.
Arcada.
Oh,
Yeah.
what the hell? What universe is this? One of those? What do they call it?
Like a Mandela.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Jesus.
And it,
I'm so sorry. That's crazy.
it
Arcada?
and it
Arcada.
meant a lot to
Because
them because they put it in the manual, and they do it where, like, you spell it out like Arcada, like they really want you to know how to say it.
do they?
which,
Because like
which that alone
usually
is weird.
if there's one consonant between two vowels, the first vowel is a long sound. So if you go by English phonetics, it should be Arcada.
Right. Well, again, I dropped out, so I didn't know any of that.
I dropped out earlier than you did. I don't know
Damn
anything
it.
either. I did Hooked on Phonics with my kids, like I came across it at a used place and for $15, but they sold them on TV for hundreds of dollars. And I taught my first kids to read, and Jacob too, with this Hooked on Phonics kit. It's pretty cool, man.
It's either hooked on. Never mind. I'm not gonna. That's a terrible joke. Okay, so you're in the Arcada.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say it like correctly
Like
one more time.
avocado.
Right. Just say it correctly one more time, and then swiftly go back to saying it how I'm more comfortable saying it. But I've got a few notes on this. Just being, it's really actually between the two versions comparison wise, the Arcada specifically. I mean, there's not a ton of difference in the entire game, honestly, but in the Arcada specifically, I'm not sure there's any differences like at all.
Oh, there's a few.
Is there?
You can kick one of the dead bodies in the original version.
Oh,
and you
that's
lose
right.
1 point, and you can't do that.
There's no kick
on the VGA version. And the lifting pod to the platform, you don't get any points in the new version, but you get 1 point in the original version because you don't have to do that. And getting the widget is another one that,
right, because that doesn't
you can
exist.
Obviously, it doesn't exist. But other than that, it's essentially the same. Everybody's in the same place. And it's a little bit easier to spot things you're missing. Like, for example, when I first played the original version, I forgot to take the key card from the body. I just looked at the body and I saw the key card and I forgot that I didn't have it. And then the game was nice enough to try it again on another dead body. It said, "Yo, and I didn't clue in because I didn't look in my inventory." And I'm like, "Oh, that's okay. I've already got a key card. Whatevs." And then I go through and I do the thing. And of course I have no key card. And then I restarted the game to get one. But you learn your lessons quick with this game.
That was kind of you to say just those three things, because it's actually three pretty giant things, but you were trying to help me out there, and I appreciate it. And I will say too that he has a name, the dead body you kick, and it's Jerry.
Jerry.
Yeah.
Aw.
Jerry. You kick and you lose a point for doing that, I believe, right?
You do. You do lose a point for doing that, as you should, because, why would you kick the dead body? Other than that most of the dead bodies are kind of a waste of your time. If you take the time to search the wrong ones, like, okay, so what did you think at the time on the first version? They don't give you a timer, but you're on limited time. But in the remake, they've got a big timer right up on screen, 15 minutes. This is all you have. I felt a little extra pressure because the timer was there.
Yes, no, I felt the extra pressure, and so did my son, to where it was like he was incredibly stressed out.
Real feelings here, people.
Yeah,
real.
It made it so much fun. Like, it was just there was something about seeing a modern 9-year-old so deeply engaged in an old ass adventure game, and a lot of it was due to that timer. He was so stressed. He was so stressed that he stopped controlling, because usually I let him control the game, despite my inner child being like, "No, I'm gonna do it." I try to let him control the game, and he couldn't do it. He's like, "You take it, and then I'd be like, "No, you got it." And he'd be like, "You take it." Like, it was like life or death kind of attitude, where he couldn't even like take over the controls. And like it was amazing to me, because he's like, he still had this level of immersion without even being the one controlling it, just sitting back watching me and watching the timer and being like, go 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 go. And like, we got out of there with like 8 minutes left on the timer. Like, it wasn't even close because I played it so many damn times. But, but it was still incredibly stressful for him in a really fun, engaging way. So I thank the timer in a sense, because it especially being the first in the beginning of the game, basically. So it really got him like hooked on the game and got his endorphins going or whatever. So yeah, I really liked it. As far as like, you brought up a good point, like, because you could see it doesn't make it more stressful. And that was all centric to like what my kid felt. But for me personally, I think it's actually more stressful when I can't see it. Because then I have no idea where I'm at. So I just assume I'm like it's almost out of time. Yeah.
At all times. I am out of time.
Exactly.
It was stressful. At the very beginning of the game, the first time you get shot, like, even for me, the EGA version, my heart jumps, because I'm just like, oh man, I forgot what that feels like. Like, it's a physical feeling. The games are real.
Yeah. And okay, so another interesting point when it comes to the tone of the game. This is the biggest difference between, in my opinion, between the original and the remake is the overall tone, and I think a lot of it has to do with the artwork because in the remake it is just much brighter. It's just a
Mm-hmm.
brighter game. Like it's a very the retro futurism art style is very playful, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing really ominous or dark about it. And the original game, um, because because the story itself, if you were to strip away all all the visuals, the story itself is somewhat intense and
Mm-hmm.
it's not necessarily like a funny plot line. That like the humor is in the dialogue and the circumstance. But I would say that the first game is it's kind of like almost like a darker and sort of pretty intense sci-fi game with some
Mm-hmm.
humor.
Mm-hmm.
And then the remake is a humorous sci-fi game kind of period with maybe
Mm-hmm.
some intensity baked into it. But it's, you know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? It's like almost inverted. The first game, and this I think this goes for the first two Space Quests. That they're more like in pretty intense sci-fi stories with some humor.
Right.
And then maybe Space Quest 3, roughly speaking, Space Quest 3 kind of is like a 50-50, and then it flips to the other direction of the 60-40 when it takes on the Roger Wilco moniker and becomes much more comedy centric. But
Mm-hmm.
my long-winded exhausting point here is that the first two the first two Space Quests are for the sake of this episode. The first Space Quest, the original version, is more dramatic
Mm-hmm.
than the remake.
There is a remake on the second one. It's just unofficial, but I've heard it's quite good.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Right. Well, the first one was so dramatic it intimidated me, as I said. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it was fast. It was scary. Nothing paused. I didn't know what to do or where to go all on my own. I did not realize how short of a game it was as a child. It seemed daunting and big and intimidating and unfinishable. I guess I was a bit of a pussy, really.
Wow. Unbelievable. Um, I mean, you have one. You're allowed to say it. It's that's the rules for these kind of things, I guess. It
Good.
turns out.
I,
Yeah.
I'm always big fan of following the rules, as y'all can tell.
Right. Yeah. That's us.
Mm.
Um, well, yeah, and I guess I'm making it sound like my point is a stretch, but really, the game starts out with red sirens and dead bodies everywhere.
Hmm.
So it's
Hmm.
not. I guess it's almost a wonder of how the remake, huh? The remake, in a sense, shrouds that in a sense. Like there's these
Hmm.
all these dead bodies, but it doesn't. I don't know. It does feel intense. It just doesn't feel scary. And
It
I
makes it
guess that's what I'm
funny.
trying to say. Yeah, yeah,
Like a
exactly.
parody of dead bodies already, automatically.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So it really is a kind of a tale of two tones in a sense. The original and the remake, which is quite a feat considering it's the exact same story with very little differences between the gameplay and the mechanics and everything that happens. Like it's pretty damn cut and paste when it comes to what you do and the story itself. But just
Hmm.
based on the visuals alone, it kind of changes the entire vibe, and it becomes quite representative of the original represents the first three Space Quests, and the remake represents the latter three quite well.
Hmm. Yeah, I like it. I like you can in the you get points, extra points, like alternative points if you kill the droid and the ORAT together when you leave too. Like there's funny little things you can do.
Can you do that in the remake as well? Do you know?
I mean, it would make sense that you could because you just have to make it follow you and then have it blow up away from you far enough. But you don't get, even if you could, which I'm not sure, you don't get points for it. So I don't think so. I think
Yeah.
it's not even applicable. No, you can't do it in the original one, I'm going to say.
No, you can in the original. I know that.
Can
I
you?
don't
Oh,
know if you
good.
can in the remake, but you know that you can in the
Oh, yeah,
remake.
you definitely can in the remake.
Well,
Yeah.
look at us, two halves of a whole. Now we know the
Beautiful.
whole picture. Yeah.
I love
Okay, and
it.
this brings us to Corona anyway. So we're on Corona, which yes was named after the beer. It was their favorite beer at least at the time.
Hmm.
Corona is a hot desert planet. If you there's in the original, there's a quick like infographic screen on the spaceship that gives you information about the planet you're about to land on, and if you pause it uh, there, or just have had a screenshot. Okay, basically, I paused a YouTube playthrough so I could actually read it this time, and because it's interesting, the temperature on Corona is 40 degrees Celsius, which is
Hmm.
104 degrees Fahrenheit, and this is the nerdiest note I have, to where I even put a nerd emoji in it to call myself out. But I don't feel like it's hot enough for the rate of hydration that Roger suffers. Like,
Oh my God, it starts happening so fast too. It's like once you get thirsty once, man, he just can't get enough of that stuff. It's like every other screen, man. You're okay, Roger. Just chill.
exactly. And so, okay, so your point about the ORAT was the spider droid is if you like, that is, I think, on paper that's a better way to do it, because then you don't
Yeah.
have to stress out about hydration. Because the other way, again, sorry for the listeners who haven't played it, the other way to kill the ORAT, which is just, he's like a big yeti but with brown fur. That's not a good enough. He's a big foot guy, big
Yeah.
footed guy.
Big guy. He sounds small. Like the name Orat would make you think it's a small creature. To me, I've always
Yeah.
thought it's the name of a small creature. He's not small.
Yeah, no, you're right. He's not. I'll have to confirm his foot size later, but for the sake of argument, he's kind of a big footish guy, and you can kill him by throwing your drink at him, because in the game it's like space age drink. It's dehydrated water, which is
Right.
funny. Just in case you didn't know that, it's what we call floody.
Yes.
And it was funny because that's funny how Space Quest 1, the original, is funny. Like I was just telling everybody that it's a more kind of intense sci-fi story with like kind of comedic elements, and that's a good example of that, where the story is ultimately kind of dark, and there's a lot of death, and there's a lot of like black in the palette, just darkness, graphically speaking as well. But then there's just little things like dehydrated water. Like that's that's hilarious. That's not how water works. But anyway, if you throw your dehydrated water at the ORAT, he chomps at it instinctively, and it immediately hydrates in his stomach, and he explodes. But if you do it that way, then you lose your ability to maintain hydration on this not that hot of a planet. Look, listen, I lived in Florida for a decade, and even now I live in Colorado, and our summers it's hot here. It gets really hot in the summers. Which I'm selling that point because people don't seem to get that about Colorado. Like, oh, aren't you so cold there? Like, dude, it's the desert that's just interrupted by having 4 seasons. But anyway, it's 104. You can tell there's like a personal thing going on there. I'll just abandon that, because you know what it was. It was when I left Florida. Everybody's like, oh, Colorado, ew, it's going to be so cold there, and it's just like, you guys. You don't know what you're missing out by having actual seasons. Like, this isn't the bee's knees being just ridiculous, diabolically hot all the time. It's frankly, it makes you guys grumpy. All right, I was one of you for a decade, and there's a lot of mean people there, and except for our listeners that live there, of course.
No, they're all wonderful.
Yeah,
but that's because they're adventure games, and we didn't know people that were into adventure games, so we're not talking about them.
Yeah, and 90% of people in Florida don't know how they got there and don't want to be there. So there's that too. But anyway, the point is that 104 degrees isn't hot enough to dehydrate at the rate that Roger does. And to maintain your hydration, it's better to kill 2 birds with 1 stone, kind of literally, in getting the spider to blow up the ORAT.
It's fun too. The spider droid is scary in any version. It's intimidating because you get near it and it blows up. But it's also fun because as soon as you go up, it can't.
Right. It can travel through the galaxy to find you, but then it cannot go up what would be a simple, handicap accessible ramp.
I really like that about it, and I like the satisfaction of it's so much easier to kill the spider droid from above in the remake. It's like in the original version, if you're trying to kill it with the rock instead of the other way, it takes longer to get him in the right bloody position.
Yeah, that's a very satisfying death. It did take me. I did have to save and reload at least 3 times last night to get that, but yeah, satisfying when it happens. Okay, so where are we at? We're on Corona. We talked about it being we know it's the beer. Okay, so let's move on to falling down the elevator shaft.
Yes, as long as you have a sticky plant first.
Yes, in the remake, right? Because you
Yes.
don't need that in the original. So, and that's good, right? Because this is a comparison episode. Yay, we got a comparison.
You get a cute little animation. He picks a sticky plant, which later on you're going to use to like gum up, which is funny, right? It gums him up, not just for one time you walk through, but every time you walk through, which is great because, it's just like a sticky plant, right? I love suspending my belief for these.
Well, in adventure game terms, it's like it's merciful. Like, wow,
Mhm.
this is just gonna stay working. That's amazing.
Mhm.
Because usually we don't get breaks like that in adventure games, and it's a
Mm-mm.
great example of how and why I and many people are and claim to be bad at adventure games. Because Roger, when he gets the sticky plant, that animation really,
Mm.
really sells how sticky it is.
So
Like,
good.
right, it's almost too long. Like how long he struggles with the stickiness and getting it off his hands. Like it really it goes on for a minute. You're like, okay,
Mhm.
I get it, it's sticky. And then 5 minutes later, when you need something sticky for a puzzle, I'm like, I don't know what to do. Like, if only I had something blatantly sticky on me. Like that one took me a while to figure out.
I
And
tried passing the grate by going around it a
right.
few times by just like, clearly I'm just not going fast enough.
And it's annoying because it's a logical solution. Like in
Mhm.
adventure game terms, anyway, it's pretty logical that you
Mhm.
know that the alien would go for it and it would stick him to the ground and blah blah blah. In our defense, we had just played the original, and this is
Mhm.
not in the original. There is no
No,
sticking the great monster to the ground. So
no,
yeah, in our defense,
it is
um,
not. And then there's the puzzle. There's the puddle of green ooze that's just there purely for the sole purpose of like giving you a death scene
yeah,
in the
exactly. Okay,
remake.
right before that, we have the lasers, and I got to mention this
Mhm.
because this is like the most, I think, infamous puzzle in the game. In the original version, you're supposed to pick. Well, in both versions, you're supposed to pick up a glass shard when you
But you
crash.
can't bloody see it in the original version, so
Right.
you don't know to get it.
Exactly. It is just not there. Not the artist didn't bother to give you a single pixel on that one. They're just like
Mm-mm.
you gotta look at it. And then that was the state of adventure gaming in 1986. To be fair,
Mhm.
but yeah, you can't see the glass. Wow, the glass shard, the glass shard, and so you need it for the lasers. And I would be amazed to hear if anybody played this back in the day and didn't struggle with that.
Mhm.
I would love to hear from anybody who was like, I actually immediately looked at the ship like I was supposed to, because it's not that you know, it's not a huge ask in an early AGI game to have to look at everything to find stuff. But at the
Mhm.
same time, there is something unfair about it, I guess. But in the remake, they show you the glass shard so you can pick it up and do the uh, I don't know,
Mhm.
send the laser upon itself so it destroys itself.
Yes.
And that's a great little animation in both
Mhm.
versions. I really like the
Mhm.
animation. The EJ version might actually be a little bit better
It
as
is.
far as like,
VGA was a bit long too on that one, actually. Just a
yeah.
little.
And he wasn't sliced up as satisfying. Like he's really like he really comes off like pepperoni in the original one, just these perfect little
Mhm.
slices, and then he falls to his death. Okay, that brings us to the acid part, and I just have to brag on behalf of my child because he was oddly good at this. I died like
Oh my
six.
god, my kid too.
No
For
way.
real?
Yeah.
That's hilarious. Jacob's just he was so frustrated watching me. He's like, "Now. Now, mom. Nope, now,
Yeah.
mom."
Same.
And
Same.
I'm like, "Well, here you do it." He's like, "Yep, okay. Want me to do it again?" Uh-huh.
Dude, it was insane. It was like black magic. Like he
Mhm.
took it and he just did it first try. And like,
Mhm.
he did it two out of three tries. Like he did it
Mhm.
one for one, and then because you have to go back through it again. Damn you,
Mhm.
Sierra. That was annoying. Having to
Yeah.
go through it a second time after you kill the Orat and bring back proof of his death. And
Mhm.
then the second time he died once, but then got it. So yeah, it was like 2 out of 3 times he nailed it. And I died like I was 0 for 6 or something. I was hella impressed. And he was super excited. And to me that was like, that's a win, man. I got the Sierra logo all over this house, and so it's like
Mhm.
I can't hide that I want him to like this stuff and have a good
Mhm.
time. So like between the timer, getting him invested in the beginning, and then him nailing the puzzle and being like visibly proud of himself for doing it, especially when Dad couldn't, it was just like,
Mhm.
oh, we got him. This is gonna we got a Space Quest fan. Like you could see a Space Quest fan being born
Mhm.
when he did that puzzle, and I couldn't.
Did you die in the acid pool in the remake?
No, I didn't, but I didn't even mess with it.
Oh man, it's a good one because you get
Ah.
the two guys from Andromeda come out and like give a play by play, kind of
Oh,
like they do if
I
you die
did
in the
then,
lasers.
because that
Yeah,
was my
well they did
favorite
it with the
death.
lasers too. Yeah,
Oh, that's where I saw it. It was with the
yeah,
lasers, but that was
yeah,
the. I'm glad you mentioned it. Regardless, that was my favorite
hmm
death.
yeah, because they totally do. They're like as if they're sportscasters, and then they even do like a here's an instant replay to show you what you missed, and
Yeah,
they do it on both
right.
the
That's
lasers
right.
and the pool. So yeah, super funny.
Oh, that was so good. Yeah, we give it a 9.8. Yeah, they do. Let's see an instant replay, and then they actually do the instant replay. It was so good.
Mhm.
And uh, furthering just a proud dad moment, and really this almost might be proud of myself for the success in indoctrination that I've had over my kid, is when those two popped up, he said, "Oh my God, it's the two guys from the commercial." Because I didn't even realize how many, what I've put him through. But he's actually seen enough of the old Sierra commercials on YouTube and stuff to know the two guys. Like, it was adorable. I almost wish that Scott and Mark could have seen that reaction, because in his eyes, like, they were true celebrities. He's like, "Oh my God, it's the two guys! Like, are you kidding me?" That was such a cool moment, and yeah,
just. I mean, it's like when we were kids, if we had actually seen the two guys from Andromeda on TV or on a video, that would have been epic. And that's no different, right? He's seen them on TV and on a video in all the epicness. So now it's just like, wow, they are famous. And here they are in a game because I died, making fun of the whole situation. That's so epic.
And it's really, it goes to show how well Space Quest 3 played it too, because by then, like, imagining, this was back in the day, like, Strummer kind of represents kids from that era too, where like they've seen him on the back of the boxes, they've seen him in the promo videos, and then comes Space Quest 3, like when they're actually a part of the game, like the magic that felt like, right? And then at the very end of the game, getting to see like Sierra headquarters in that meta moment, like it's so well played. It's so cool. Okay.
A few meta moments, especially in the remake for the deaths, like the Conquest of Camelot death. Did you get that one?
I did get that one, not intentionally either. I'm trying to remember exactly how you get it. It was intended. Well, it was sort of intentionally, because you press the button you shouldn't press.
Yeah, it's the middle button when you're going in the spaceship to go to the wrong place. And by wrong place, they mean Conquest of the Longbow. And then you're like out by the pub, and it's beautiful.
Oh, it was so cool. And you hear the horn, like that the merry men blow in Longbow, and it's like, it just kind of, because even myself, like, God, having done a voice in that game for One Short Eyes video, like as intimately as I know that, I still stared at it for a second, like waiting to confirm. I'm like, wait, this is Longbow, right? I just wanted to make sure I didn't have, like, maybe, because I don't know, anybody listening is probably like, well, what else could it be? But in my mind, I'm like, wait, that's not King's Quest like 5 or something, right? Like, you know, because it has that overall, vibe. And then you hear the merry men's, like the horn blow. And it's just like, it was so satisfying. And then Strummer and I had played Longbow a couple months ago for the episode with One Short. I was mentioned this on the last episode, how he actually bailed on it. It was the only Sierra game that he really just wasn't that into. Right. But regardless, he played enough of it to still enjoy that kind of moment of just like, oh my God, I know that game too. Like, it was just, it was a super kind of magical experience playing the remake with him. There's so many payoffs.
That's why we got into Sierra. I mean, a part of it, I know it must have been for you too, the little in-jokes. Like, you see a character from another game in another game, and they reference another game. And what to them was branding and advertising, to us was like a secret hidden world within the games that only people that played all of them would even notice or know about. And they were so exciting to find. And I'm kind of hearing that in your representation of your son playing it too. He's kind of getting a touch of that world we had, which is so rare in this day and age.
It really is. And the only comparison I can think of in this day and age, and it doesn't apply for my kid because he's not a big superhero dude, is like, this is almost like his experience with the Marvel Cinematic Universe, because it's essentially exactly what it is. It's like this little cinematic universe where it's all tying in together, and you're getting these tiny little payoffs by seeing, a bit of Longbow here, or trying to think, in Space Quest, in the original, don't you crash in King's Quest 1?
Yeah, with one of the deaths, it's over near the bridge, right, at the beginning.
Yeah, I'm not. That's the scene. Yeah, I'm not sure if it's the same death, if pushing the wrong button, if that's even an option. It doesn't matter. Like, we're not a detail-oriented podcast, but the point is either way, like whether it's the original or the remake, you still crash into another Sierra game and get that kind of cinematic universe payoff thing. But yeah, in the original, I think you crash into the lake of alligators surrounding the castle in Daventry.
Yeah.
And Ken's like, Berta, something, 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 something. End quote.
End quote.
Okay, let's move along with the game here. So after we kill the Orat and bring proof of his death to the giant holographic alien. By the way, there's a giant holographic alien.
Right, that doesn't speak English, and if you don't have the translator, like I didn't the first time I played through, you can't understand what he's saying, and he keeps sending you away. And if you've already crash landed there, there's nothing you can do about it. That
Right.
was in the other version.
And that is a death sentence too, because
Yeah.
you're inevitably gonna have either used your water already on the ORAT, or basically getting sent back upstairs is kind of a death sentence too.
Yeah, it's not good. And the bridge, you have a bridge much like in King's Quest where you have limited
Right.
amount of times you can cross it, and it's not forgiving at all. You may only do exactly what you need to do as many times as you have to do it, period.
Yes, and it really does. Something our show touches on a lot is that whole consequence versus comfort thing, and the remake at least was a great example of how consequence can be implemented quite well. Because things like the bridge, again, looking through this through my kid's eyes, in the sense of like it's a fresh pair of eyes on this stuff, which is essentially why I bring him up so much. I think it's because it's fascinating to see
It is.
what it looks like through the eyes of somebody who's seeing it for the first time and getting a fresh take on it. And he was just like, it really heightened his immersion and just the sense of danger and the sense of consequence. Basically, every time that bridge cracked, it's just like, oh man, we can't go back through that again. And seeing how restoring a saved game, as long as you saved it, Anna, that it didn't really that it didn't really matter much to him, because it was just part of the experience. But anyway, all right, for the sake of moving forward, the hologram turns out to be in the remake quite an ugly alien, weird looking dude, and they're going to give you a skimmer, and the skimmer is like a little hovercraft that can hover off the ground but not higher than rocks, it turns out.
When you get the skimmer, there's a data cartridge you have to view. And if you forget to pull it back out of the machine, you do fine and you can finish the game, but you're missing important data.
Right, you get the bad ending, which is adorable because speaking on the original version, it's adorable because the 1986 equivalent to a bad ending is one less paragraph in your ending paragraph. So it's slightly less praise ridden. It's just like, yeah.
I tried it and I played through with the bad ending because I wanted to see what it said. And it said, if you'd only been the guy that looks like King Graham at the end of the original,
right,
or the remake, I mean, he's like, well, if you'd only been smart enough to bring along the data cartridge containing the construction specifications, we'd be able to build a new star generator, thereby saving Xenon from the horrors of a rapidly cooling planet. Oh, well, you are just a janitor.
Right. You are just, yeah.
You still get the golden mop. So,
It's a masterclass in passive aggression, isn't it? I mean, you are just a janitor. A little pat on the head.
But the game's like that. It is a little unforgiving. It is still it and the remake, which I believe they tried to be relatively faithful to the original in its unforgiving manner, as in, well, if you missed it, shrug of the shoulders, it's really not that long of a game. You've already done all the steps. Go back, try again, and try not missing it this time.
Yeah, exactly. And that is a fair point. If you had finished it, then you do have all the solutions in mind, and it's probably 40, 50 minutes if you know what you're doing.
That's it.
One of the all right, I'll save that for the end. I'll save it for the end. Okay, so skimmer sequence. This one my kid couldn't beat. We played it about, I got it at least 15 times.
Did you go slow? Because I just put it. I cheat. I just put it slow.
Oh, God, no, I didn't, and I'm more mad at myself for not even thinking to do that. Damn it! Because I did think to speed it up to get through the acid, but I didn't think to slow it down for the skimmer.
It really helps. I did the same when I was doing the action sequences at the end of the game. I just put it all the way down to slow.
Right, I should know that by now. Like in in Longbow, like you slow it down. Ah, damn. Yeah, it's taught me to do that. I should have known it, but yeah, I didn't, and we had to call it a loss. You had
to skip the scene. They give you the option to skip the skimmer sequence in the remake, but in the regular one, I just always do the sequence. So.
Yeah. I'd love to know, at least in the remake, how they programmed it, because if you try to hide, like camp out on like the far left or right side, it immediately comes for you on the far left or right side. Like the game is calling for your position, and it knows where you are as far as sending rocks your way.
It is. It's like the slot machine, man. Both of them have this sort of like AI kind of smartness behind it that makes you want to be like, screw you, man. Not cool, man.
Not cool, man. And it pained my kid to skip it. Like I kind of forced him to. We kept doing rock paper scissors for if we're gonna skip it or not, and
Aw.
whether he won or lost, it showed us that he wasn't ready to skip it. But it came to a point where I'm like, just eyeing the time. It's like coming up on 11 p.m. Like we need to probably go ahead and finish this game. Daddy's doing an episode in the morning for some reason. So okay. So anyway, and I'll say quick note on the side is I don't know if it's Amiga or Atari. I think it's the Amiga version of the remake that you can try again, which is
Right.
so nice. I really wish that the DOS version had that, because if you in the DOS version you have to restore it to try again, and that means clicking on the skimmer. And there's like a randomness element where sometimes Roger goes backwards and crashes, which is very funny the first time. And then maybe the second time too, but then it's like, okay, like I want to get back at the skimmer thing and try and beat that. But I do like it's a very irreverent kind of line where he's like, whoops, no, things in reverse there as he crashes, going backwards real quick and then forwards. But anyway, so yeah, just a nerdy version difference there is that in the Amiga, you get to just click try again and immediately be, trying again. So anyway, you get to Eulen's Flats.
Yes, and their Flats Eulents, which is, like I said, my son got that. I didn't get it. Now he gets it. We all get it. It's so funny.
It is very fancy for farts. It's actually rather impressive that at the end of the day it's a fart joke, because it takes a lot of explaining.
I didn't get it at all, but so here you are, so you get to go to this place and you have to make some money. Essentially, you figure out where you are and figure out where to go. Those are the quest outlines for the area.
Yeah, and this brings me to my biggest point of contention with the game, either version. So the not getting the glass comes up a lot as one of the more infamous fuck yous of the game. Not taking the cartridge is another one, but as you already highlighted, that doesn't actually, it's not actually a dead end or anything like that. So, I think that can be kind of forgiven. Plus, that is kind of adventure game protocol as far as the AGI era was concerned, right? It's like checking to take the thing back. Like that's how games were then. They never gave you the thing back. You usually had to get it yourself. And I'm not saying that means you'd remember to, but at least it's consistent. But the biggest point of contention I have with the whole game is this part where the guy comes up to you. It's got like this real Mugsy vibe. Hey, like I don't have my Pringles can, but just imagine I did, and the things I would say. But he comes up to you to buy your skimmer, which is funny because actually it's not even your skimmer, and you do sell it to him. Just as far as adventure game protagonists being terrible people secretly. I'll sell you the skimmer that's not mine.
Sure, why not? Great.
But it's like you can't sell it to him on the first go. He offers you 25 buckazoids. You have to wait the second time, because then he offers you 30, and more importantly, he offers you 30 and coupons that you need. Like need. And I just hate that. I don't like. It's kind of like the Leisure Suit Larry dumpster thing. I don't like when you have to look at something more than one time. Or like, how could you possibly know to reject the dude's offer? Like, there's nothing in the game has taught you that, like, if you hold on a second, it'll come back around again. And it's just like, it's such a death sentence if you say no. That's my problem with it. It's not because it's not teaching you anything. It's just like, do it or you're fucked. And I don't like that. That part was very mean.
In Quest for Glory, you have to barter to make deals, and you can bring down the price of things. So in Quest for Glory 2, you meet Ali Chica. It's based off of one of the Marx brothers, and he's selling Sauruses. And if you don't accept his first offer and then don't accept, you can keep going and essentially take something that's like really expensive and going to break the bank and make it like next to nothing at the end. And it's the only other time I've really come across that idea in these games that would give me the notion. Because like I did the walkthrough, so I don't know if I would have said no the first time or understood the concept. I can't even like guess. But I assume I would have accepted the offer the first time around. And I don't assume that there would have been a reason that I would have doubted to take it. I'm like, great, he wants to buy the house. It's like in Gold Rush. Somebody comes up and buys the house. Okay, they buy the house.
Right. Yeah, I think the adventure games have taught us more fear of loss than anything. Like, better do it now. Better do it while I can. Take the thing while you can. Because usually that's how you get dead ends. It's not taking the thing when you have the chance to, which is essentially what happens with the glass thing, where it's like you gotta take it then for the. I'm not sure if you could actually go back and get it. There's the sandworms and the dehydration factor, so I don't know. But in the remake, it gives you a text box, like a little GUI to hit yes or no, and you could maybe argue that is maybe a bit of a nudge towards saying no, just because it's like, well, why would you be able to say no? So maybe I should. But even then, that's a pretty thin argument, and then take that away for the original version where you're entering it in parser wise, and it's just it's pretty unfair. But I will say, on a positive side to that whole situation is that the fact that the big box came with physical coupons or coupons.
I call them coupons.
Coupon, yeah, I like that better. Okay. That's pretty. I don't know. Is this the right time to use meta? Like, it feels like that's
it
pretty.
Does.
Because there's a little Wizard of Ozzy for a second there.
Because of the wonderful things he
Thank
does.
you. Yeah, it had to be done. Because they don't put it in your inventory. And I think I could be wrong, but I feel like they don't put it in your inventory because you have it physically already. Because they put everything else in your inventory, but they don't. Not in the remake. In the remake, they do put. Well, you need it in the remake because it's point and click, so you have to grab it from your inventory. But in the parser, you don't need it in your inventory. Let's face it, inventory has always been kind of useless in the parser ones. Like, I went through most AGI games without ever even looking at my inventory, ever. Like, I didn't realize that there was inventory art until I started replaying these games in like 2013, 14. Like, I literally had never seen like a text parser inventory item before, and it kind of blew my mind to realize that there was like a drawing of the ray gun, for example, that you get in Space Quest. Like, I had no idea. But anyway, I thought that was really cool because the box comes with the 2 coupons, so therefore you don't get them in your inventory. Maybe, at least that's how I'm taking it.
Yeah, those coupons are hard to come by. I don't have the coupons. I have the box for Space Quest 1, just one of them, but I do not have coupons.
Right. They're similar to the napkin. The napkins, the Larry napkin's probably even harder to obtain. Just because it's a thin piece of paper. But,
at least I have that one.
Right. Okay, so you go. You hold off on selling it, and then you sell it, the skimmer, and then you go into the bar, where there's all kinds of different options as far as versions when it comes to who's playing there. Whether it's like a Blues Brothers situation or a ZZ Top, and that comes down to copyright issues and stuff they had to remove. I didn't take notes on this, actually, so I don't know the order of what happened when. I just know that stuff was removed and dumbed down and made less apparent, that it was, let's say, ZZ Top or the Blues Brothers. And then in the remake, there's really neither of them. There's like an alien playing a really cool drum set with 2 really tiny aliens. I'm not sure if they were supposed to be that small.
Yeah, they were really little.
Really little. Like, I don't know what they were trying to depict there. It was kind of strange. But anyway, that brings us to another difference, which is sitting at the bar is more important, I think you could say, in the remake. Is that right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, you either way, you have to sit down and have 3 beers and learn the name. And you get the same amount of points in either version.
Okay. Right. You have to take down. And this is ultimately a copyright puzzle, but you have to take down a sector.
Yeah.
Like, you overhear 2 guys. And that part was a little bit weird in the remake because they really. Yeah. It was oddly ham-fisted the way they were telling you how many drinks to get.
It was because he's like, I think I could use 1 more. I'm still kind of a little bit thirsty. And
and then he's like, how about just 1 more? Like, he makes it even known, like, hey, you only want to buy just 1 more after those 2. And it's like, okay, why are you telling me exactly what to do all of a sudden? You never tell me what to do.
I missed the sector name in the remake, and there's no way to find it out again that I knew of. So I just had to restore.
Bummer.
Yeah, if you're not cluing in, because the thing I wasn't a huge fan of is the dialogue would keep moving even if I didn't click. So my clicking didn't necessarily make a difference in all places, but either way it kept moving forward. And if I looked away or if I did something else, I'd miss really, really super important information, which I only know is important because I played the game before. But if I had never played any version of the game before, I wouldn't even know that I'd missed relevant information. I'd be like, well, how the hell am I supposed to know that?
Right. That is interesting. Oh, you know what? And I'm going to go all the way back to the Macintosh version of the game because it had a really cool feature, which was display the last message.
Huh.
And it's the only time I've
Interesting.
ever seen that in an adventure game where because
Never.
in AGS, yeah, I can't even, as far as I'm aware, I'm not, I don't think that's possible to do. Like I have no idea how that would even be done. And in no adventure game could you ever be like, let me see the last thing that was just said again. But just in those early Macintosh AGI versions, you could actually call on the last message in case you missed it, which is very cool. It'd be a nice feature for any game to have, honestly.
Yeah.
It must take a ton of memory or something as far as why it's not an option. But
Yeah.
and speaking of memory, because we're coming up to the slot machine, in the original version, we'll get this out of the way. Probably one of the most well-known fun facts of Space Quest is that you could type in "holy shit" or "holy fuck" or "holy" any curse word to just immediately skip all the nonsense that is the slot machine in only in the original version. Because in the remake, as we already kind of touched on, you have that widget thing that kind of more or less accomplishes the same goal, where it makes sure that you always get the 3 in a row, and you still have to kind of spend a little time with it. But anyway, so in the AGI games, the synonyms for each word, the word groups, so you could only do. Okay, let me try and word this cleaner. There's a lot of times playing AGI games where you're like, God, how didn't they account for that version of this word? You know, why wouldn't they let me say this and it has to be that? And the answer is it was actually usually memory. That synonyms and the amounts of words that you could use in AGI took up a ton of memory, which is super weird. And it goes to show the worlds of difference between 1986 and now. Like the idea that words would take up enough memory to be significant is insane. So that's kind of in one sense that's why there was a limited use of vocabulary in parser games. It's probably not that they didn't think of it, because as much as we all like to imagine that humans used to be dumber, they really weren't.
No, they were not, I assure you.
Right, that's I'm speaking to the youth. Damn it, the youth always thinks that the previous generations were stupid. They were not. It's just there's usually reasons for it, and this would be one of them. I mean,
Yeah, limitations were a huge part of the quirks and a lot of the decisions made behind the games that we liked at the time.
Exactly. Yeah, well said. Exactly. Limitations were behind most of the weird little issues when it comes to just lots of things. But to the slot machine and to holy fuck, there's word groups. So a word group would be like specifically for Space Quest 1, because I'm looking at it in front of me. Word group 78 is droid, droids, robot, robots. So those are the 4 ways that you could call on something robot-like, right? Word group 84 is the word group for curse words. And there's actually quite a lot in here. There's a lot more in this word group than any other that I can see immediately in front of me. Which you guys could look at this through using like AGI tools from, what was it, Nailhead, I believe it's called, the developer of that. But anyway, there's tools out there to look at this stuff. It is a little more tricky with AGI than SCI, because SCI has SCI Companion from Phil Fortier, which is a brilliant program, and it's a lot of fun. But anyway, the word group for curse words is... I guess I'm just gonna say all the curse words. It's asshole. I just got very like coy and shy. I know. Okay,
It's all
guys.
right. I got you. We're good.
It's cocksucker. That's the next one. And then it's actually cocksucker again, but it's one word. And then it's dickhead, 2 words. And then it's dickhead, 1 word. And then it's fart, which, one of these doesn't belong, because that's just not so bad. Then it's fuck, motherfucker, piss, shit, shithead, and shithead, 1 word. So those are all your curse words. So if you use any of those, any words from word group number 84 after the word holy, you get to skip the slot machine. Wow, we spent a lot of time on this episode. All things considered, a disproportionate amount of this episode went to that, but we're all done now.
It was important and had to be said. And I didn't know about it at all. Slot machines, for one, it's the main reason I learned to save scum from the very days. Not that we ever called it that at the time.
Right.
But that's the whole thing. And it really did. I mean, not only did the early Sierra games promote gambling, they insisted on them.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that's right. I didn't even think about that. You're absolutely right. Because Larry and Police Quest had the card games going. Yeah, there was no getting around it. I guess maybe in King's Quest, but even Longbow, you had 9 men's Morris. Jeez Louise.
Yeah, that's it. Yes, it's a great game extender. And, that it's just another bit of evidence that the games that we were playing as children were made by adults for adults, essentially.
Right. Right. All right, so we've. By the way, to the listeners, at this point in the episode, it's been about 45 minutes ish, and that's about how long the entire game takes if you know what you're
Mm-hmm.
doing.
Yeah.
Which is just fun to think we're not even done talking about it, and we've been going for longer than it takes to actually play it.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, so okay, you win at the slot machine. Through various methods,
Mm-hmm.
one way or another, you're gonna get there. We believe in you. And then you go outside, and you have to go to Droids R Us first of all.
Yeah.
Which, as Anna knows, my kid is oddly obsessed with Toys R Us. The idea
Mm-hmm.
of Toys R Us, because bless his heart,
Mm-hmm.
he's going to be very disappointed if we ever get to one. It's just a
He
regular
sure
ass toy
is.
store, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But to him, it's like a mythical, thing. It's just like it's like his life. It's like Harold and Kumar go to White Castle, and it's White
Mm-hmm.
Castle. He's just like that is his goal right now. So anyway, for him to see like a droid version of Jeffy the Giraffe, yeah, I know the giraffe's name.
Mm-hmm.
To see the droid version of him, and just like the colorful way that it's all written out, just like the logo, man. Again,
Mm-hmm.
the remake made a lifelong Space Quest fan out of him.
Yeah,
Uh,
it caught my kids' attention the way that the original did, in the opposite way that the original didn't.
right. Well
It
put.
just, yeah.
Yeah. And this part's really clunky in the remake because
Mm-hmm.
you have to give the droid the coupon, and then you have to
Oh, I didn't
give.
like the whole setup for
Me
that. You had to
neither.
do it
Thank you.
when the droid was on the screen.
Yes.
Because there's no, like, when you talk to people in the remake, you're not bringing up like a conversation dialogue tree. You're literally just having the
Ah.
talk of what you can talk with them, which means you can't convey or pass information. All you can see is information that's already laid out, which is why I think it would almost have made more sense if you clicked your Buckazoids on the screen at the
Definitely.
time of wanting to buy it rather than on the person.
100%. And that's a great observation. I never thought of that. There's no dialogue trees. That's exactly why some of these parts were clunky. Really, really
Mm-hmm.
well put. Yeah. And you're right, because I was trying to click it on the screen at first, and then
Yeah.
and there's too many droids because it takes forever
Mm-hmm.
to get back around to the one that you need. There's just
And
like
they're funny. There's the Dalek and there's little in jokes. And I mean, they made it a whole thing in the remake, but.
dude, I love that you said Dolly because that was the only one that I even recognized as like a thing.
Yeah. Way to go. We're nerdy, but we're just not quite nerdy enough.
Yeah, exactly. We're very nerdy considering neither of us are Star Wars people, basically.
Right.
I'm pretty sure half of those were Star Wars references. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Probably.
But anyway, so you get this droid, then you go over to I forgot his name, Tiny or something.
That's right.
And he's a scumbag because he sells you a ship that wasn't his to sell. But
Imagine doing that.
right after we just sold our skimmer that wasn't our skimmer, we then basically buy something that's funny. But it's okay because the guy, at least in the remake, the guy who owned the ship tries to mug you if
Mm-hmm.
if you let him, if you walk around
Yeah.
enough, let's say.
Yeah.
And there's some fun deaths there to save and take the wrong ship, and actually that part's pretty clunky too, right, in the remake as far as
Mm-hmm.
how you settle on the shit, because you have to like give him again. It's similar to the droid where you have to give Tiny or whatever the coupon,
Mm-hmm.
and then click on the ship you want. It's just a little weird, and as you really neatly said, it's all because there's no dialogue tree. That was like kind of, I guess, the best they could come up with.
Mm-hmm.
Which fair enough. I mean, it works enough. And so you
Yeah.
get in the ship. Yeah, what do you got?
Oh, I was just going to say, yeah, it works enough unless you're not familiar with what you need to do. And then, like, I found I
Right.
was left in just as many, if not more, dead end and unwinnable situations in the remake than I was playing the original because of the extra things they added in just to kind of mess with you.
Yeah. Right, exactly. Yeah, and we started to talk about it off air, and then we stopped ourselves because we're like, we should probably just start the episode if we're going to talk about our experiences. But what you were saying to me alluded to the fact that there's something kind of gaslighting about playing the remake after the original,
Mm-hmm.
because it's
Yeah,
like it's just a little
totally.
different, but it's usually not. But sometimes it's really different, and it's like a combination of like gaslighting and Mandela effect, where you're like, but wait,
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was this way. It's definitely, and it's like, yeah, it's a bit of a mind fuck at moments.
Yeah. Yeah, just a bit because it's like, did that actually happen? Of course, there's funny things like in the original, you can kiss the Sarian guard, and you can
Right.
get a point for it, right? After you get but you can't do that in the remake.
Oh, you get a point for it? That's
You do
adorable.
get a point for it. You don't even lose a point. Isn't that sweet?
Wow, that's got to be a hard missing point to find. like for back
Yeah,
then.
you're like, what the hell do I need to do? Damn it, where's that
Kiss
point?
a stranger? What do you want from me? Like that's absurd. It's awesome. And that's a nice highlight of kind of the beauty of parsers in a sense
Yeah.
too, where yeah, there's
Like you can take the second grenade, for example, in the parser, but you can't do it in the remake. There's not enough time and they don't leave you the ability to. And if you do get the second grenade in the original, you get a point for it.
oh cool, okay.
Hmm.
See,
Hmm.
now I'm just recalling because there is a lick icon. I wonder what happens
Hmm.
if you lick a Sarian.
You
Like
know,
if
I didn't even use those icons much at all. And when I played the Leisure Suit Larry remake, I used the zipper all the time.
right, but well, I messaged you last night right before bed. I'm like, I don't feel ready for this episode, and that's the basically why I said that was because
Hmm.
in that moment in my head, I'm like, damn, I didn't get to to lick everybody.
Me too. I was thinking the same thing. I'm like, I
Then
meant,
I'd
but
be
you know what?
ready.
There was a lot of generic background comments. Like it wasn't written in that it made me wanted to click to look at everything because a lot of everything was the same comment for all of it, which didn't lead me to believe that they would have had specific
Dude,
dialogue for every single lick. So I think I just didn't because of that.
dude, you're exactly right. Because and that shows me it was a lot more subconscious for both of us than we realized. Because
Hmm.
I did try it like
Hmm.
two, not enough times to
No,
really
a
officially
few.
declare it, but yeah, like a few
Hmm.
times, and it was like, why would you lick that? And it's like,
Hmm.
oh well, that's not very. That's totally generic. It says nothing. Yeah, that wasn't written for this moment. Like
Right.
as it was in many other games, it was definitely like, yeah, they didn't have time for it or something. Like, why are we even offering these icons? Well, because there'd be a blank space in the bar if we didn't.
Yeah, that's kind of what it feels like. There
Yeah,
was a lot of that. As much as there was extra funny writing, like there was sort of an incompleteness almost to certain aspects of the remake that made me feel that, you know, maybe something was rushed or some things were missed or who knows. I mean, there's so much to take into account, but I can see that in it.
right. Well, I've always looked at the for example, the lick icon as
Hmm.
just unruly. It's insane.
Hmm.
It's too much. It's too much to put on even a team of writers. Like it's
Well, it's
just too
clearly
much.
useless. What did I even did you even need to lick anything? I didn't have to
Yeah,
lick
right.
anything to solve a single puzzle in the game. I mean, maybe it had some creative death sequences. Maybe I should have licked the sticky plant and licked the lasers. Maybe I should have licked all the things that could kill me, right?
Right, but at the same time, you know that you're not going to get a lick-related death scene. It's just going to be
Right.
like you'll fall through the lasers. Like
Hmm.
there's going to be one death animation for the lasers, probably whether you lick it
Yeah,
or touch it. I had to
that's it.
slip in a probably there because I'm not
Yeah.
positive, but yeah, I think we kind of are. We know without knowing. But yeah, it's an
So,
unrealistic amount of work to really put on anybody. And you could
hmm.
see with the remake, it's like, okay, guys, I think we're going to go ahead and just do generic comments for these ones.
Hmm.
Um, all right. Anyway, we're almost at the end of the game here, everybody.
Yeah.
Don't tune out yet or whatever.
We got to
Um,
leave Corona because now we have the right spaceship and we got our droid. Our droid is going to pilot it. You have all of those and nothing got stolen and you got everything you needed to get. Then you can be aboard the Deltar next. That's where you're going to go to if you go to the right sector and you see a ship and you decide to check it out.
right. Yes, exactly. And this is where you need the code that you heard at the bar,
Hmm.
um, so you can enter it in. And the only really notes I have on this whole section is I really don't like the spaceship designs in the remake. I
Hmm.
kind of hate them. I don't like because I think it does a disservice to the game as a whole because it's like it's almost a bad look for the game, especially
Hmm.
considering it starts like one of the opening scenes is of the spaceships and it's like this giant like roasted turkey of a
Hmm.
spaceship for some reason, and then the Sarian ship is like a giant praying mantis or some sort of garden variety insect. and
Hmm.
and it's just I don't know, it's just it's too much, it's too silly, it's too like it's not funny, and it's over the top, it's just way over the top where it's just like what are we doing here, why is the spaceship a roasted you know
Hmm.
chicken, it's just weird, like I don't, and that's why I say I feel like it almost sets this tone for the game's going to be like that. Bonkers
Hmm.
would be an appropriate word for it, and it's not. Like the game's actually it's really good. It's not as like wacky or like ridiculous, I guess you could say, as like a giant cricket spaceship or a giant turkey spaceship. Anyway, I don't like the spaceships. basically.
To make up for it, though, they threw in that fun in joke after you can kiss the guard, you can talk to the guard, and you can also answer about a King's Quest question. Have you ever played King's Quest 3?
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Very cool.
And you get a point for that in the original. You have to ask the guard or say yes to the King's Quest question in the original, but there's nothing about it in the remake. You can't have a dialogue like that. So
Right.
mm-hmm.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't know that. All right, yeah. So you get on the ship. And a lot of the ship aspect is quite similar. It's not identical, but it's pretty similar.
Yeah, like you don't have to figure out to kick the grate in the remake. In the original, you have to understand that although you can't remove the grate, there is nowhere else you can go, and you're going to have to problem solve how to get it out of there. Eventually, you figure out you have to kick it. It's a bit of a process. But if you're playing the remake, you just like grab the grate and you're like, oh, I better kick it, and you kick it out.
Right. And then let's see. Let me get my facts straight real quick. And I think it's in the original you can get in, like, so there's a box that you push what's the word, like a chest that you push up against the wall, and you use that to stand on to get into the ventilation system. But in the original, and I'm hesitating to make sure it's not the remake. Yes, in the original you can get in the chest and let them just carry you. Okay.
You can, you can hide it. It's an alternate solution, and it's actually in both versions.
It is in both. Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
But it is considered the alternate solution, not the standard solution.
Right, and that is nice because this is early days for alternate solutions, and there was quite a few. I mean, okay, maybe that's a bit much, but there's a couple alternate solutions that we covered. The Orat one with the spider,
killing the Dryad and the Orat. Those are pretty much the main two in the game.
Okay, there's two of them, but listen, that's that is the technical couple of them. So yeah, we're still good. Okay, so anyway, this is where you go into the washing machine and you comically come out wearing the Sarian uniform, which is all well played. Like, I like that. And again, back to the early notion of the original being more of a sci-fi game with comedic elements. That's another way that this fits in, where it's like the game's pretty serious, it's pretty intense, and then just something kind of goofy like that, happenstance happens, and it's adorable and it kind of fits and everything like that. So
yeah, it was cute. And then you get to be a Sarian, so they're not so scary because you're one of them for a little while.
Right, and I love that he's like a high-ranking Sarian uniform, so like Roger gets a small taste of respect of what it's like to be respected and saluted.
And he gets a weapon, a real weapon that he gets, and because he has his ID card, and he also can steal some grenades, which are pretty important.
And very stressful in the remake. I kept dying. I kept trying to go
so fast.
Yeah, I kept trying to go as quick as possible, but you have to wait till the droid is all the way in the door, or else it shoots you. And it was just, I had a really hard time with that. It was kind of stressing me out, but in a good way, because
slow
that means
motion, though, right? That was why I kept not getting stressed out, because I kept moving all of the action sequences to slow.
Ah, damn it! Right, I did not. I probably had mine cranked all the way up from the acid thing way earlier in the game, and never turned it down. But on a plus side, the fact that I was getting stressed out only goes to show that I was like immersed and like part of, and I was a part of the experience. Being stressed out is.
Yeah. There were so many Sarians to shoot in the remake compared to the original too. I'm just like, oh my God, would you guys please go away?
Right.
Because you comically lose your helmet after you comically gain your outfit because you trip, and then like a cleaning bot sweeps it up off the floor.
Right. So I see. I really like that, and actually,
it's great.
I got to go way back to Corona. This is only in the remake, but when you're trying to get away from the spider droid, every now and then Roger will trip over his own foot and fall and then die. And I heard that getting some probably well-deserved shit for that on like other reviews and stuff. But I really liked it because it's very Roger Wilco to me. Like just the clumsiness of tripping over your own foot. Like, you are a janitor. Like, no offense to janitors. Like, they keep the world moving. That's for damn sure. But it's like, at least we forget we're not like a heroic protagonist. We're supposed to be like, a janitor who sleeps on the job. So it's like, it's fitting for Roger Wilco to trip over his own foot, as like I very well might in a similar situation. Like, where, we weren't trained for these sort of things, like wearing a spacesuit with a giant glass, goldfish helmet or whatever. And it's just, I don't know. It's as frustrating as it was to trip and fall and have to restore. I really actually appreciated the the clumsiness of Roger, because it fits his character. It was perfect.
Yeah, no, it really was. And essentially the rest of the game from here on in is the same in both versions. You only get points when you kill the first of the Saurians. And then if you need to kill a bunch more, that's fine, but you don't keep getting points for them. And it happens really quick. All of a sudden, you've turned off a force field and you've set up a self-destruct code and you escape in a pod. It's over. That's like all of a sudden it's over.
Right, that does happen quick. And real quick, to disable the star generator, you use the last 4 digits of Sarah's telephone number, which is neat.
Which is such a funny little thing, isn't it?
Right, I love that. Absolutely love that. But yeah, you're right. It ends suddenly in the sense that, like, when we clicked on the escape pod, this would be obviously in the VGA if we're clicking on it. Yeah, I don't know. You don't expect that to be the last thing you'll do.
No,
but it is.
Not at all. You realize, and then, okay, so you can get 201 points in the VGA, but the original is 202 points.
Oh, cool. Wait, what was the VGA number?
202.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
one more point. Yeah, that's it.
If you don't set the if you don't set the star generator to self-destruct, then your planet, what is it, Xenon? Yeah, it gets blown up.
Yeah, and you lose 10. You don't gain 10 points because entering the self-destruct code gives you 10 points. So kind of a big deal.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So that brings us to the end. Like, if you again, we kind of went over the 2 endings thing. So if you took the key card back, the whatever card back, it's not a key card, I guess, but the data card,
cartridge, yeah.
Yeah, if you took that back, you get the good ending. You have to set it to self-destruct. Oh, in the EGA version, so in the VGA version, if you don't set it to self-destruct, then you're in the escape pod. You're approaching your home planet, which I've lost confidence in the name of. I think it's Xenon. And you see Xenon get destroyed by a giant green laser beam, which it's a cool little animation. Just that whole scene, the framing of that scene is very retro futuristic. It's just like, just even the color palette of the galaxy is just, it all just fits this 1950s version of the future. It's very cool. I really, really like that art style. But anyway, in the EGA, in the original version, if you don't set it to self-destruct, then you can't finish the game because the elevator that you need to take to the escape pod is locked.
Right.
So it's much more rigid, polarizing you can or can't kind of situation. So I do like in a sense, like the remake better with that one when it comes to I don't know. It's less adventure gamer to just be like lock you out of it, where it's like you actually get a little animation, quite a beautiful animation of your planet blowing up from a laser beam and stuff. So that's cool too. So at the very, very end of the game, after the credits in the remake, you get what would normally be a death scene with a restore, restart, or quit. And it says, "Thank you for playing Space Quest 1. As usual, you've been most entertaining." Now, what I think is interesting is in the remake, it really gives you the idea that you are being watched and the designers of the game are over your shoulder laughing at the mistakes you're making and how silly everything's going. And the 2 guys from Andromeda narrating some of the deaths reinforces that. You've kind of got this like person over your shoulder. Maybe it's, the spirit of Gary Owens, right? Or something. Right. And he's there and he's judging you harshly on everything you're doing. And you're doing all this stupid stuff and they're all laughing virtually at you. And it's kind of neat that it's like, I don't know, brings it home, kind of makes it real. It really does. And yeah, it lays the kind of bedrock for Space Quest 4, 5, and 6, I believe, all having narration.
Yeah.
Where it kind of just gets more and more heavy-handed with the narration in a good way. And I don't know about you, I think I already know the answer, but I read everything to my kid as Gary, in the best Gary Owens that I could possibly
of course, obviously. Which is pretty laughable considering you hear what I sound like, people. I do not sound like Gary Owens, but it's the tone of sarcasm you're looking for.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's that Space Coast like delivery. You gotta. It's in the delivery. But anyway, I've got a bunch of nonsense notes for after the story. But just while we're on the ending, the last thing I'll really mention, in order of or regarding the story is in the remake. I don't remember because it's been a few days, but I don't remember if the original has it. I'm pretty sure it does not. But in the remake, it's like you saved the day, you brought back the thing, and you got the girl.
Mhm.
And I read it to my kid, and I just kind of made a joke, and was just like, "What girl?" And then the very next line is like,
Mhm.
"Wait a minute, there was no girl," or something
Yeah.
like that. And that was like that was like an actual laugh out loud moment
Oh
for
my
me, because that
God.
was really funny.
The exact same thing happened here because I'm sitting there with the kid and I'm like, what girl? And he's like, what girl?
Right?
It
Yeah,
was so perfect.
they must have the way they slipped it in was perfect then, because
Yeah.
it worked exactly how they intended. If we both did the exact same thing,
Yeah.
and then they're just like, "Oh, wait a minute, there was no girl," because you know what it is too. There's like a very like scantily clad, like sexy green alien girl on the screen in
Mhm.
that moment. So it's like, I don't the brain almost starts to like make sense of it. We're like, oh well, there's the girl you get, and then it's just like, wait a minute, though, we didn't save a girl. Like, it just worked so good. It was so funny.
No, it was funny. I'm just looking through the messages I was sending you last night about the game, and I was having issues with it, right? And I'm like, I'm playing it now. I'm still at the slot machines taking forever. And then about like I gave that to you at 9:28, and then at 9:41, I figured out about attaching the widget so I could win because I'd already been working on that stupid slot machine since like 9 o'clock in the remake. And then I just sent you a never mind,
Never,
LOL. I'm
right?
clearly not doing well at relating the two games together because this one seems so different, but it's also the same.
Right. There's
That's
that gaslighting. Yeah.
so much so because I'm sitting there going, I feel so stupid. Of course it's the widget. Then I'm like, wait, there was no widget because I just played the original, right? And I'm like, hang on, I'm trying to convince myself it really happened. Like I can see that would happen in witness protection or in programs where the police are interviewing you and they're like, are you sure you didn't see him wearing a blue shirt? And I'm like, shit, maybe he
Didn't I?
was
Yeah.
wearing a blue shirt. I'm pretty, yeah, no, it's totally. Meanwhile, he was like wearing no shirt.
Right, exactly. It's the get the girl thing. Like, are you sure you didn't get the girl? Like, I guess I did.
Yeah, it's totally. I'm
I
easy to
feel heroic.
convince. Yeah. Where is she anyways? I just, shit. But no, you know what? It's a great game. I don't know if I could say, like, if somebody came up to me and say, hey, I really want to play a Sierra game with my kid. It's the first one I want to play and I want to make a good impression. Should I play which version of the Space Quest games should I play of the first ones? I'd probably say I'm not sure if that's where you should start.
Right.
Maybe, but they're so unforgiving for the things that you miss that I feel as a novice they would be more frustrating than anything, either of them.
That's a good point. Yeah, because first of all, it's just really a shame that they didn't fix the dead ends in the remake.
Mm-mm, at
That should
all.
have absolutely been handled. And granted,
Mhm,
it's just God, the remake. It feels like it was made a decade after the original. Like
mhm,
when you go from the super chunky AGI limited palette text parser to just glorious VGA with 256 colors and point and click interface, and it feels like it was made like a decade later, and it was not. It was it's
mm-mm,
very early 90s, as we already covered. It was 1990 something, probably one, and
mhm.
it's just like, yeah. So I guess my point is that it wasn't, it really, it even the remake was pretty damn old. It's still, they still hadn't really ironed out a lot of those. Almost feel like 93, 94, like getting into like the Gabriel Knight uh era of things. I hesitate because that was a weird framing of it, but regardless, it's my point. Sorry, my point is is that they didn't have a lot of this stuff really worked out, even by the time the remake was made, and it's really, the remake was not that much older than the original. So yeah, to your point, it's nice that you can skip the arcade sequence, but the spider droid would be a pain in the ass.
Mhm.
We already mentioned the dead ends. Yeah, exactly. It would. They're not going to use like walkthrough or anything like that. It probably would be a tough one. But at the
It
same
would.
time, I have like this just amazing experience that my kid and I had playing it last night in mine
Mhm.
too, where it's like, God, it was such a kind of perfect experience, but
It
that
was.
has, there's a lot behind that, right? Where it's like,
Ah,
I know
so
the
true.
game really well, and he's been indoctrinated on Sierra stuff, and a lot kind of culminated. Hey, I said I'd say that during this episode, I
Well
think.
done.
Sweet. I forgot halfway through. I'm like, what was that word I was going to say a lot? And
No,
I
your
totally forgot it.
subconscious knew. Oh, the trilogy. That's the first one that came out. The collection. You were correct. Actually, at the beginning, it was EGA or VGA, Space Quest 1, 2, and 3, framed as being $169 worth of games for $49.95 on
Yeah.
5.25 or 3.5 inch discs. That was the first collection.
Okay. Thank you. Ooh,
Yes.
and while you were
Ooh.
saying that, I was able to quickly Google when this actually came out. As much fun as I'm having with the running joke would be generous, but regardless, it was 91.
So it was 91. Lovely. Well, then we were correct all along. Oh, ooh, hey, we got to get this on air. Did you know that it would be really fun to do a comparison episode between Quest for Glory 1 EGA and VGA?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Duh.
right? So just
And
saying.
honestly, we probably should do that one next because we're going to be
Mhm.
doing King's Quest 6 soon. It'd be nice to space out the King's Quest comparison from the King's Quest 6 episode.
Oh, yeah. Dude, that's a great idea. I'll put it in the calendar.
Okay. Yeah, no, you should. You should. Plus doing that'll, that'll make me do what I have to do, which is, go ahead and play them both. Um,
Mhm.
and what we should do too, while we're committing ourselves to things live on an episode, as if to make it more, adds the legitimacy of what sort of obligation. We should carry on a little bit with the comparison thing
Yeah.
into some of like the infamous quests in AGD remakes because
Mhm.
it'd be fun to play Space Quest 2 and then play
Yes.
the two different I think remakes of it from IQ and
Yes.
AGD.
Yes.
And
Oh, I love that.
we could
Yes,
do the same thing
please.
with King's Quest 3, both of those remakes.
Quest for Glory 2, both of
Right,
those
Quest for Glory
remakes.
2. There's Space Quest for Glory that IQ did that might be actually kind of fun. I'm not sure that's like a
Actually,
game
there's
game, but
the fan game universe for Space Quest is big. There's prequels and games that happened during the game and post games and in between games. Like there are so many fan games, and right within that whole graphical era, some of them fit right in and are done with a lot of care.
right, two of them in particular, and I think I'll refrain from naming them because I'm not sure, and I don't want to do
Of
anybody
course.
disservice. But there's two Space Quest games that are really quite revered as far as like
Hmm.
just being really well done.
Hmm.
Just on that enclosure level
Yeah.
of fan game where
Hmm.
it's like, man, this is pretty quality stuff here. So yeah, we should continue it on because I mean, also we've done 200 some episodes, and we're not a big. It seems like I was looking around the other podcasts, and a lot of them just really lean on interviews, and we've never been
Hmm.
a big interview one because I was kind of wondering like, what do other podcasts do when they're at 200 episodes and running out of shit to talk about? And it's like, well, they just keep interviewing people, and that's never really been our motivation. Let's say, while we
Hmm.
do it and we do enjoy it when we do it, it's not enough to be like we don't want to do it every episode basically. So
No, we really actually take the thought and time, and because we have a couple of interview episodes coming up, but we try because we're only doing an episode every other week, and you know we can only do so many. Otherwise, if we did one interview a month, which we kind of have been doing, that's like 50% of our episodes.
right, yeah, exactly. And we have a lot of fun just doing weird topics like environments or comparisons. So anyway, all that being said, is since we are wanting for some fresh ideas before we just start redoing really old episodes, which would be fun too, because there's a lot of topics that, for example, maybe you weren't on the show yet, or I don't
Hmm.
even remember doing because it was more than a month ago. But it might be fun to do some more comparisons or some more of the fan game stuff. So
Hmm. Yeah,
yeah,
there's a lot of good stuff out there, and we're just happy we've glommed onto something we want to talk about because it's
right.
like it's so hard to come up with subjects sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. Especially we've turned to like AI and been like, hey, what do we talk about? And it'll give us like 30 things, and we've done all of them.
Yeah, we're
All
like, this sucks. That was no help at
Yeah,
all.
like why don't you talk about
Thanks.
graphics? Talk about detective games. Talk, and it's just like check, 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 check,
Yeah.
check. Um,
It's got this like impersonalness to it too. It's like this serious tone that just, I don't know, it can't capture the Paul and Anna vibe.
Well, a big problem with it too is that it's always trying to suggest that we talk about a specific thing's impact on the culture. Like, what the
Hmm.
fuck are you talking
All the
about?
time. It's
Impact on the
like, dude,
culture?
I don't
What do
even
you
know.
mean? What does a conversation like that even sound like? Like,
Hmm.
it's just I don't know. I don't even have a jokey answer. I just don't know.
Mm-mm.
Okay, well, hold on, because I know we're getting ready to wrap, but I just want to say there is a debug mode that you can do in the original. I
Hmm.
just glanced down at this note, that's why I'm just like abrasively changing gears real quick. Um, if you guys want to mess around with it, because again, assuming a lot of our listeners have played this a lot of times, and just another way to like extract more fun from it, from something you've already done a few times, would be to mess around with the debug codes. So assuming it's the DOS version, you press Alt D. I don't know if this works in Scum. It probably does. But you press Alt D. The trick is you have to do it in each screen. So every time you leave a room, you'd have to do it again. And then there's just a ton of debug codes. Check out the cutting room floor. I think it's tcrf.org, or just search the cutting room floor, throw in a Sierra keyword, and it'll give you all the debug codes that you can have fun with. Things like Be Alien will put you in a Sarian disguise. It doesn't. You'll still get like shot if you walk in front of a Sarian wearing it, because it's not how programming works. I guess you could say it's not like, the NPC Sarians are like, he looks like one of us, do not shoot. It's like, you're still Roger. But there's just little fun things you can do. There's one of them where you can get give yourself object number 23, which is pocket lint. And I got this. Thank you to Trolls Space Quest Historian. But it's a fun little fact in the sense of like he went down a little rabbit hole as far as like why is there this pocket lint? Like when you look at it, it shows like this weird. It looks like it's trolling you. It shows like an applause sign, no pun intended back there. It shows an applause sign, and it's just like, what is going on with this lint? You don't need it anywhere in the game. You have to give it to yourself to get it. If you give it to yourself and then look at it, it gives you an applause sign. And it turns out it was the very first thing that Scott Murphy, the very first inventory object that Scott Murphy ever programmed. And it was basically him just kind of testing the system out to see what would happen, and just feeling the whole thing out, which I don't know, it was relatable and kind of cool and just neat to know, I guess, as far as deeply nerdy cuts is concerned. And that's it. So let's end on a final analysis of the comparison. Like how do you feel about the comparison itself? Or sorry, the remake itself.
I'm glad I played it. I'm glad it was whimsical, it was funny, it was fun, and it engaged my 13-year-old in the way that the original didn't. So I liked it for its timelessness. I feel that the original is wonderful in its nostalgia, but doesn't really hold its own so much in the modern day compared to the remake.
Right. Well put. Yeah, I share the same sentiment. It's I guess I would say, I think we end up with these kind of we categorize things based on assumptions and lore and what the community says, and I think that I'm learning through going through these remakes that we tend to categorize the remakes as throwaway, as they didn't sell well at the time, they didn't age well, nobody asked for them, and all that is a fact. It is. But there's still really fun Sierra games that had a lot of thought and care go into them. Yeah, okay. Something we didn't mention is that the remake is like despised by the two guys. They didn't have anything to do with it. I think a lot of the reason they don't like it is bitterness that they weren't approached to have anything to do with it, or even to sign off on it. Which, dude, fair enough. Like, this is their baby in a sense, and for them to not be brought in on decision making, or to at least give it their blessing, is atrocious. It's unacceptable, and it's not cool. But all that aside, it doesn't mean that you have to not like it because of that fact, right? And those are the kind of things that take over like a Facebook community or whatever, where you just hear things like that, and you end up putting the remakes. Maybe I should just speak for myself, but you hear things like that, and you put the remakes in this little box of no need, don't bother. It's the original's better, blah blah blah. And I'm not here to say that the remake is better than the original, because it's more complicated than that, especially when it comes to nostalgia. But I will say that if you haven't played it and you've played tons of Sierra games, dude, there's like a shiny new Sierra game you haven't played yet. Like, go play it. Like, please go play it. I'm not going to say that you're going to like it more than the original. And honestly, the more you separate it from the original, the better. And just try and look at it as its own experience. Look at it as a fan game, if that's how you need to frame it to yourself to stomach it. But it's like, we're all of a certain age. We're all if you're listening to this podcast, like, you really, really know all these classic adventure games really well. So if you find yourself in a position to play one you haven't ever played before, like, they're not making new ones, right? So it's like, you might as well check it out, because it's cool, and it feels like a Sierra game, and for better and worse.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, that's what the remakes have taught me, is that they should not be disregarded based on hearsay and assumptions and things like that, because there's a lot of love and care that go into them, and they're a lot of fun. And artistically, the artistic direction of this one in particular is it's just fun to look at.
Mhm.
Unlike the Police Quest remake, I said the opposite of that one. That one was not a good time to look at. That game was really, really good in almost every other aspect, but it was a little tough on the eyes. Whereas this one is gorgeous. It's so much fun to look at. If you like, Iron Giant, for example, then
Mhm.
you'd have just a good time looking at this game in general. So
Yeah, I agree. Get out there and play it. It's worth it. And I mean, use a walkthrough. I don't care. Do whatever you need to do. I still enjoy the series, no matter how I do it.
exactly.
Hmm. And so, on that note, I am going to take just a minute to say thank you to our Patreons, people who are going strong out there. Really appreciate all of you. So I'm hitting you guys up first before going into all the other riffraff, because I want to say, because I've been working kind of hard at trying to figure out how to pronounce people's names. You see. Because I did pretty terribly the last time. So I just want to say thanks to Michael. That's pretty good. Michael Council. I think that was
There
all
you go.
right.
Okay.
Jay Holmes. I feel confident about that. By the way, Michael, you're in Australia, which means it costs you technically a little bit more if you look at on paper to be in that tier. So I really do appreciate the contribution. Brian Manown, who's
Canadian to an Australian.
just thanks, because my money is like that too, but give or take a little bit more. And Brian, Death Defying, does music stuff, really really cool person, and out there on the social medias covering for us sometimes online. Right.
Yeah.
It's all good stuff. Okay, now Girolamo Castaldo.
Just roll your tongue and say it with confidence. Doesn't matter how the rest comes out.
Girolamo.
All right, never mind.
Okay.
That was terrible advice.
I didn't roll the R's though. My mom can't roll R's, and she said when I was a kid, "I'll pay you $20." We were camping one time. I was like 8. She's like, "You teach me to roll my R's, I'll give you it." And I still haven't gotten that $20 yet. I'm a terrible teacher, clearly. Also, Mark Fillin, who does great games.
Fillion? I think it's Fillion.
It is, but for some reason it's Fillin now in front of me on this. No, Fillon.
You're
His
like, it
email
was.
is that too.
It was Fillion, but now it's Fillin.
It's now Fillin. It really Fillon. It's right there in front of me.
Well, is
And
that a
his
different
email
Mark then? Is
address.
that Hakuna
Is it?
Matata? Or
I
is this
don't
somebody
know.
different? I
But
think it's
Mark
somebody different.
Fillin is whoever you are. I appreciate it. Feel free to write and explain to me anything I need to know. Also, Tim Ellis, you also rock. So you're welcome, guys. I tried really hard to get the names going this time. I don't think it deserves you to say thank you to me. I take back my "you're welcome." I'm so sorry about that. But anyways, outside of that, hey, why don't you come look for us online? We are on Twitter at CGG Podcast. Also, Paul is out there at Phantom Fellows, and that also is Phantom Fellows, as in the Phantom Fellows, the game that he's currently making. So that's pretty cool. You can check that out. And email us, classicgamersguild.com. You can look for us on Facebook. We're a page. We're a group, Classic Gamers Guild. We're also on Instagram and on YouTube under the same name. So
Don't do murder.